Hi, this is your instructor, Daniel Chang, and today for Game 220 for the Otis class, we're going to learn about color. With color, we're going to have to learn about painting, and we're going to have to learn about how light hits form, and color theory, and all that kind of stuff as well. Hopefully, you've already gotten a lot of this in foundations. But in case you have not, I'm going to do a quick overview of color and painting and all the words and what do they mean. Alright, so right here. Okay, so this is something you'll see oftentimes for uh, painting class on uh, how to break down all these values that you see on an apple when you paint it. So let's start with what's called the mass tone. So the mass tone is sort of this hue on the apple right here, which would be if there was sort of ambient light in the room instead of directional light on the apple. What is the local color of the surface of the apple? What would that look like under white light, where there isn't a lot of white light? It's just kind of a medium amount. So that's kind of your mass tone, and that's generally what you think of as whatever the local color is. So like if it's my skin, it's kind of what my skin looks like without a whole lot of different colored lights on it, right? Um, and then you've got you've got your light mass and your shadow mass. So light mass is where the light's hitting it. The shadow mass is kind of where the shadow's hitting it, or the lack of light, I guess. If you want to think about this more easily, perhaps, let's think about the apple as not an apple, but if the apple was the planet Earth. So the light mass would be what? Daytime. It would be where the sun, which is the light, is shining on the Earth, right? So the light mass is daytime, the shadow mass is what? Nighttime, right? It's all the parts of the object, in this case, the apple or the planet Earth, all the parts of it that are facing away from the light or the sun, right? So obviously, light mass is brighter, shadow mass is darker. But within the shadow mass, you sometimes get what's called the reflected light. And that's because we don't live in a vacuum. Even planet Earth, even though it's in the vacuum of space, we have the moon and we have the stars. And so there is still a little bit of light that's hitting on the shadow mass. And that's the reflected light, meaning there's something on the opposite side that is getting hit by the light and then reflecting that light back onto our object. And so that's the reflected light. Now, the reflected light, it's only going to hit wherever is closest to the bounce. So then what you're going to end up with is this area right here. It's called the core shadow. It's sometimes also referred to as the terminator, but it's this core shadow where the shadow mass is the darkest. The shadow mass is not always going to be darkest at the farthest edge, because it might actually be reflecting something off, or getting reflected light off of something that is bouncing that light on the object. And so the darkest part of the object sometimes, especially when it's spherical like this, you get this sort of band that goes around there, off of there, and that's called the core shadow, right? So you think of it like there's a main light, and then there's like a softer bounced light that's usually diffused coming off the other way. Uh, how do you tell that it's diffused and not like a direct light? Well, when you're getting a direct light off of a shiny surface, like an apple is, it's nice and smooth, so it's shiny. You get this thing here called the highlight, right here, right? It's a reflection, right? It's basically a reflection of the light source, right? And that's when you have a direct light hitting something. But if it's bouncing off of something, then it's kind of ambient light, which means it's not, the light rays are bouncing everywhere. And this is only catching some of it. It's not like magnified onto it. So you don't get a highlight on the shadow mass here. Even though the surface, like the texture, the smoothness is the same everywhere. Let's see, other things to think about here is, oh yeah, so what that also means is, even if you do get a little bit of, bounce light on the shadow side of things, it's never going to be as bright or brighter than anything within the light mass of the object. So it would be a mistake for you to paint this reflected light the same color and the same value as things within the light mass, because it's going to be diminished. The only time where something on this other side would be as bright or brighter than something on this bright side here is if you actually had a second source of light. So if you have two lights on something, then you can have it, equal on both sides. But if it's just one source of light and this other side is just pure bounce, it's never going to be nearly as bright as the light over on that side. I guess maybe if it was in a hall of mirrors, you might get something that's close, but even then, it's not going to be perfectly bright. It'll be close, but it won't be there. Okay, so we see all this stuff on an apple. It's often shown on an apple, and people are like, apples are boring. I want faces, so how does that apply to the face? Right, so on the human face, right, we've got our mass tone, which would be sort of the color of this person's skin, right? And whether that color be sort of the pink on the cheek or the sort of less flushed colors around the forehead, it's whatever is the skin color there, right? We could have weird, patches or whatever discolorations all over us. Usually on guys down here, the color becomes a little bit more gray and a little bit more cool color as far as like blues and such. And then around the nose, we tend to be a little bit more pink, and around the rosy cheeks, we get a little bit more more capillaries around here, so it gets a little pinker. And then up here, it's usually just kind of like a sort of a flat, whatever skin tone you may be. So around the ears as well, usually if you shine a light behind the ears, you'll see the red. You'll see it's capillaries and blood vessels going through there, so you get a little bit of redness around the ears as well. There's also a core shadow on this fella. The core shadow doesn't move straight because the surface of his head has, it changes, right? So the core shadow would run along sort of his temple right here, run along sort of his cheekbones right here, and then down his face, right? So there'd be a core shadow. You'll also see a core shadow like See here, like around the chin and jaw area, there's like this section right here that's a little bit darker, but then there's a bit of bounce light coming off, and you're getting a little bit of reflected light off of the sort of the waddle of the person's, chin. Um, and then, and there's obviously this thing called a cast shadow, which is basically, this guy getting in the way and casting a shadow. I've mentioned before that usually a cast shadow is painted in a way where it's got a harder edge to it, whereas a lot of the shadows that are formed here have kind of a soft edge to it. So that's one way you can tell between, like how you should paint a cast shadow versus a form shadow. Now, if the form shadow is on a tiny thing, like the tip of his nose, or maybe a finger or something like that, then yeah, it will have a sharper looking edge but if you zoomed in, it would have like a nice rounded soft. But from far away, it would look sharp, right? But you could see, also within the cast and sort of the form shadow here, like here's like this like hard line definition under the eye, but then on the eye itself, there's like a blended sort of softer shadow. So you'll have like a crispier side, and then there's like the smooth, gradiated side of the shadow. That's the form. Let me see, and then we've got highlights, tip of the nose, the forehead over here, parts of the eyelid, maybe even the highlight might hit the eye because the eye is glossy and wet, right? And then yeah, there's the light mask and the shadow mask too, right? So it's a little bit more complicated to see, but in general, if you look at his head as a sphere, the highlights are up here on the light mask, and then the shadows are down here on the shadow mask, right? So that's kind of how you tell. So those are sort of our initial definitions of, what I'm going to be talking about here as far as, light mask, shadow mask, mask tone, things like that. Okay, so there you go. When it comes to painting a character, going from sort of a line drawing or a black and white drawing to a color drawing, there's several different ways. There's definitely the hard way and the easy way. The hard way gives you a lot more control, but it takes longer to do. And I can teach both, but today I think I'm going to teach the easy way. Maybe, easier depending on how you think about it. But this way, this is sort of the long form way, which is you paint a full grayscale painting of the character. And this will take like 70% of your time, because this is beyond just the line work. This is full grayscale. It's as if you took a black and white photo of your character. So there's a lot of time spent on this grayscale side of things. And then you start tinting it. You just start glazing on top of it using overlays and things like that. And then slowly you just kind of build that up until sort of a halfway point where you're like, all right, those tints aren't going to help me much more, so now I got to paint some opaque highlights and some areas where I want the paint to actually be, not just a tint, but like I'm just going to paint in the highlights and the lighting and the rim light and all the little reflections off the nose and the eyes and things like that. And that's kind of the full gamut of it. This will take a while. Another method of painting is if you already had the values and the swatches ready for you, and then you just knowing mask tone, highlight, shadows, and things like that, you know how to approach your painting. First, you lay down the mask tone, and then you lay down your shadows for where it would be in the shadow, and then you put in your highlights where it would be in the highlights. But that does take a bit of knowing sort of how light falls on form, right? And but if you have all these tonal values already kind of set up for you, it's very easy to take it from a line drawing all the way to the end here, like that. But the tricky part there, of course, is how do I get the swatches, right? And so this is kind of where you can do a little bit of a cheat on things. So, for example, I've got these 3 drawings here. I think I'm gonna do my demo on the spacesuit version of her. So let's just do that right now. Just gonna grab this middle section right here and hit Control Shift C, Control N, which is a new painting, and then I don't need to hit Control V, I don't think, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag and drop this over in here, and that should be, yep, the same stuff I have here as I do there, except for my signature right there. Okay, so I'm just gonna, alright. And as we know from our previous tutorials here, we have our shadow, cast shadow there. We've got this tonal stuff here, which I can get rid of for the time being, because I just mainly I just want the line work at this point, right? And in fact, I don't even think I want the bright purple colors, whatever layer that's on. Oh, it's on there. Okay, so I'm just gonna get rid of my light purple colors here and up that opacity so that I can, yeah. Oop. And even there, because I kind of want a fresh start on this so that I can kind of work my way up from it. So yeah, that's kind of the line work. And what I can do is hit Control A, Control Shift C, Control V, and that just copies everything onto its own layer up here. And I want to just up the contrast on this thing until it's just the line work, like that. Cool. Eventually we'll get rid of all of the line work, I guess, but for now we have this. We'll get set it on multiply and then completely desaturate the thing so that it's just black and white. Okay, desaturate, Control U, you desaturate it, and there you go. All right, so I've got my line drawing here, and then how do I get my swatch? Well, I think I should go on Google and just look up spacesuit armor, female, you know, find something that has textures and colors on there that I want to repeat onto this character, you know. And what I'm looking for are values, colors, and texture. So texture meaning like something that's really reflective, that's metallic, versus something that's matte finish and cloth, right? Things like that, right? And actually this Matt Damon from The Martian is actually a very good one. This one's alright, but it doesn't have the face, so I'm a little bit, you know, thinking I kind of want a face on that one. But that previous one with the Matt Damon, I think, was pretty. This one's not bad either, right? But yeah, sort of the Matt Damon Martian thing. And I also like that this has a bit of that reflection value right there off of the helmet too. So that's really helpful as well. So I'm just going to copy this image, and I'm going to go Control N, Control V, and paste. So this, I want to get a swatch off of it. But what I'll do is I'm going to duplicate this layer. So hit Control J, and then I'm going to go into filters and remember our filter gallery thing. Oh yeah, actually cutout works out really well in this situation. There's another one you can do, which is under style. Let's see, is it texture? Yeah, texture. You can turn it into stained glass, or I've seen ones where it's there's one called crystallize, and that one does a pretty, like glass here. It does a pretty good job too. Now that's too wrinkly, and I remember seeing one called crystallize back in the day, which was pretty good because it just kind of turned it into kind of like this stained glass thing, except it didn't have all the white gaps in between it. Fortunately, I don't think I see that anymore. But paint dabs, actually, so out of all of these, I go back to my trusty thing I always come back to, which is cutout. That cutout filter is pretty sweet. So I hit OK, and now I've got like a nice simplified sort of swatch color version of this character in this lighting scheme, right? It got rid of some of the nuances and stuff, but that's kind of what I want. I want like simplified colors to start with, and that's what I'll apply to this character based off of the palette that I have here. You got representations of the flesh tone, light and shadow. You've got representations of the reflection. You've got representation of some sort of shiny metals, or shiny painted metals, versus matte finished cloth here. You got different tones on the cloth too, and it doesn't matter a whole lot, quite frankly, right now, as far as like, oh, if I don't like orange, what if I wanted like green or some other color? At this stage, it doesn't really matter because we can always change those colors later. But at this stage, it just matters like you get your general values and sort of patterns down on your character of where you want the lights and the darks. So I'm kind of foregoing that grayscale thing I had shown you earlier, which I will come back and do a version of that later, I believe, if I have time. But this build up is, you could see, a slower process, whereas with picking my colors off of something that's already colored, I can just jump right into it and at least get a foundation down, and then I can tweak it and change it later. Alright. I'm going to pause this here, come back, and we'll get started. Alright, so let's start painting. Before I start painting, I just want to make sure that my line work is sort of just in a clean black and white state, and I want to set this layer to multiply instead of normal. I'm going to set it to multiply. What multiply does is it just darkens what's underneath it, and all the white bits are not going to actually affect anything underneath it. And what that allows me to do is, if I were to paint beneath this, that the line work would still show up on top, right? But the first thing I want to do before I, even do what I just did, is I want to make a selection on around this character up on top, and you could see right here there's some gaps that may have been missed, so I'm just going to deselect the whole darn thing and get my Wacom pen, Control D, and I'm just going to draw in black all the little bits that have little gaps in them, like so. Yeah, you just don't want any of these gaps. You want this to fill in nicely. so that you can actually make an easy selection around this character. I'm just going around and looking for any potential breaks in the gaps. Okay, now let's try it again. Magic wand tool, select all the way around, like on the outside, and I'm gonna hold down shift and select no, under the leg here, and then I'm gonna hit Control Shift I, and I'm gonna come down to the layer beneath it, and I'm just gonna maybe just paint bucket it for now. What is this? 3D material drop tool. I don't know what that is. Never seen that before. It must be on some weird painting mode. Yeah, it's under 3D mode. I don't want 3D mode. I want maybe essentials mode or painting mode, something like that. Photography mode even. Let's see. Yeah, give me my normal mode. Yeah, there you go. All right. Oh, missed that part. Dang you. Yeah, there's a gap right there. Alright, let's do this one last time. Without this gap. Alright, let's try this again. Selection. Around this character. Under the leg. Control Shift I. And let's just fill it in with sort of this, I don't know, grayish color. This pink bucket. Perfect. Sort of perfect. I still see a little gap right there. So let's just paint this part in. Let's see, anything else that we have that works against us on the shape? No? Okay, cool. So here we go. So the line work stays on the top, and all this tonal work is a nice silhouette, which allows us to paint inside it. We've done this several times at this point, right? So should be fairly self-explanatory by now. So from here, I'm going to take the line work and I'm just going to reduce it down very lightly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start creating, you know, sort of the mass tones that I was talking about. Remember when I was talking about mass tones here, where it's just the local color, right? What it would be under the circumstances of like white light. So I generally want to pick something that's, I don't know, like not the brightest bright and not the darkest dark, but kind of the medium tone that would be in here for any given section here. So this would be, for example, the mass tone here. And possibly this as well. Having not really figured out completely, you know, what my character is going to look like, but maybe, I don't know, I'm gonna give some sections that might be white and orange, and other sections might just be a darker value. But I'm guessing this part will be white. So what I'm doing right now is I'm creating flats, right? These are what they commonly refer to as flats. You can either choose to paint it in with your paintbrush, or you can just use the selection tool and kind of select your way through it. I don't know, is there a different tone between whatever this is and whatever that armor is. Maybe. Let's think about where it's armored versus where it's clothed first, and then let's think about where it's probably got some orange accents versus, you know, regular white armor after. Yeah, I mean, we even have something here to protect the crotch region as well, so that in. The good part about this is I don't have to worry about anything that is affecting the silhouette at this point, right? Because my silhouette's been locked in, and so once I get to these areas here where I just need to fill it in, I can kind of paint rather freely without any worry as to like, am I? Oh wait, there's no arm. That's just the other side of the waist. Let's see, armor. Let's just call this armor. It could be a different tone altogether later. But let's just separate that. Yeah, when you paint in your flats, you kind of want to be like 100% you want to be 100% on your opacity, because otherwise you could accidentally, I don't know, get all these extra values in there that you don't want. Not sure what the belt is. Let's just pick this gray color right there, and let's call that, well, maybe a lighter gray. Call this lighter gray color the belt. The buckle could be a different substance, I guess, later. And now I'm trying to figure out the feet. For the feet, let's go back to whatever this cloth thing is. For now, we might just go with dark boots later, but and I just want something to be able to differentiate it. And maybe this darker warm gray bit, that could be the come to think of it, the boot design is not great on this character. Let's see. Let's make this sort of this orange color. There'd be a bit of that here, bit of that on these straps. Be on the opposite side. Obviously, continuing down here. Oh, maybe this part could be orange too. That might be kind of neat. Thinking of the orange as a nice accent color. That could probably save us, actually, now that I think about it. Like, what if the boot design that I didn't like so much had the accent color on there? That that could work, actually. This section here, I think it's dark cloth. And I don't know, I might want to keep. Yeah, decisions now. No, I'm gonna make that, keep that dark gray, but instead I'll put in this as my accent stripe right here. And obviously the logo could be a nice accent color. And of course, whatever I've got on this armor up here can definitely use some accent colors here as well. Uh, let's see here. Maybe going around this thing? Or have it here. Not that. There. And maybe that secondary shoulder pad up here. That could be accent as well. Just coming in, cleaning this up. Just kind of picking the next neighbor on these sort of border ones that I've kind of scuffed up accidentally. That color, for example, paint that back in. Alright. Anything else? Maybe on this armor piece we can have a couple of bits here. We'll differentiate something between shiny orange that is armor painted orange, and the other orange would be you know, cloth. That'd be like these straps right here. That'd be the other orange. And then maybe a stripe down here. Don't know how this would end though. Maybe around the edges. Decal. Yeah, so as I was saying before, like, what if this was this kind of a orange material here? That could work. And this boot. And then we come in with this darker value that we've established and make that the strap and the soles. In general, you kind of want the foot area to be slightly darker. Why is that? Well, it's gonna get dirty anyways. Why would you? I guess you could have a character wear white sneakers, but those white sneakers are gonna get scuffed up and darkened.
Felt like I need something here to kind of differentiate, something like that. Cool. Um, yeah, see, even now I'm still making design decisions. All right, so this is kind of a darker color around this character in the back here. And then whatever this space metal, yeah, same space metal. It's got to be, let's just make it the same. If, since it's so close anyways. Yeah, let's give it a little bit of wiggle room for thickness there. Cool. A little bit of orange back there. And then flesh tone. So mass tone, I'm thinking it's about this. And then we'll do shadows and such afterwards. The face is gonna take a while for us to paint perfect, honestly. Hmm. Now, I'm gonna need, because this is all kind of in the dark side of the, it's behind glass in the helmet. So I think what I'm gonna do is instead of picking like a really bright color, I'm gonna pick like kind of a darker, darker kind of white grayish color. And the same goes for the striping that is inside here as well. It'll be a slightly darker orange. And let's just hope that works. Okay. And let's also just make this other side of the helmet. Okay. And then we'll do the glass and the reflective stuff later. Uh, feel like that's a little bit of an later project. Let's see here. We've got little bits and bobs of grayish metal here. Probably get that greeble right there. Uh, again, I'm just trying to clean up my flat layer on all this stuff so that I can later on just make a selection and paint freely. Cool. Um, let's pick like a dark brown, and we'll use that for our striping here. It's really good to be able to find a picture that is similar to the colors and values and materials that you want to find. I think part of the secret to just jumping right into color in, in this method that I'm doing where we're color picking off of something is to find that right picture to start with. At least as a start. Then we can come in and we can, elaborate. So I'm just going to call this layer that I just painted down flats. And the important part about flats, of course, is that the colors on there are, you know, painted on there 100%. The reason why is because later on, when I come in and I pick those colors out, that I have something that is a nice flat color, right? What I can do now too on my flats is I'll just select the silhouette and then inverse select, go to my flats layer and delete all the stuff that's on the outside that I overpainted. Right? Cool. Didn't do anything on the gun. Probably do something on the gun. Just make the gun kind of whitish color for now, and then we'll figure it out. And then, yeah, maybe the rest are that sort of grayish color for now. Cool. All right. Got our flats in. Can always clean it, but now the next thing we want to do is just choose one of our flats. Let's choose the maybe the armor, or this torso section here on the. Let's do armor. Let's do armor. Armor's easier. So on the armor, just gonna select. Oh, is it too close? Go tolerance on my thing. Let's make that tolerance 5. Let's try it now. Yeah, see, now I have less tolerance, so I'll be able to just pick these armor pieces and it'll just select those. Do I want any on these? Yeah, maybe the arm? Too? Keep those separate for now. I can already tell here on this armor I'm not perfect. Go on to the flats again. Delete. So I just filled it in. And then I'm gonna make a new layer and call it I don't know, hard armor. And I'm just gonna fill this in to start with. And what you can do is once you fill something in, is if you want to paint on top of it and you don't want to paint outside the boundaries, kind of like a clipping mask, except a clipping mask is dependent on the layer beneath it. When you want to just paint right on the layer and have it be sort of transparency locked, there's this little button up here that says lock transparent pixels, and when you click on that, when I paint on it, it's not gonna move outside of my transparent pixel. So as a demonstration, let me just show you. Pick red. When I paint, it's just going to paint on those armor pieces that I just selected, right? So I'm going to hit Control Z to undo. And now I can just paint on those hard armor pieces. And how am I going to pick those colors? Well, I'm going to pick those colors from this here, right? So I'm looking at the shadows and okay, let's just paint in the shadows. And let's also think about what direction the light's coming from. Probably from the left hand, the light's coming from the left hand side. And so now when I pick those shadows, I'm just going to paint those shadows, much like this image here, paint the shadows on the right side of my character, right? And anything that's facing downward and away from the light is going to get hit with that shadow, right? It's the hard armor. So let's see. We can do, let's pick this color for whatever the shadow is over here. And then we can now pick that secondary one. See how I'm just, well, for the lack of a better phrase, I am stealing the colors off of this piece of reference photo, right? Um, if you want, if you want to, have all the colors just originate, then you could just eyeball it. But I gotta say, this is a faster process when I have all the colors in front of me that allows me to choose, like, oh yeah, if I just pick that color, I know it'll work because it works on, well, in real life on this photo here. And then I'm gonna pick like this lighter color. And eventually it's just gonna come around to this like really bright kind of white-ish color here. Yeah, let's get in with the highlights now. Now that we've got our shadows down, let's get in with the highlights. I'm just picking a lot of next neighbor colors and just trying to get my highlights this way, right? And of course, anything that is kind of on the plane that's, not exactly front facing, I'm gonna darken just slightly like this. May have to come in and just reinforce some of your line work later with some of this darker shadow gray color. But for now, that's pretty good there. Let's get the legs. Highlight. Come on, highlight. Yes. Let's get some highlights on the legs. as it kind of moves away from the light source, maybe it starts getting a little bit more gray down here. And it's come back with the darker bits, our shadow bits. All the parts that are moving away from the light. So the side planes of this armor right here. Left plane of that armor there. See how it kind of starts rolling. Bit of this top plane. There. Then of course, this side would be all dark. Whereas maybe over here, and they must be. I know there's like a cut on this calf. I just don't know what shape that cut is in. Might be this simple. And then over here where it starts curving up again. So that's the hard armor. And, you know, we're just blocking it in right now. There's going to be little polish details we're going to have to do later on, like little bits like this, to really, really sell the idea. But yeah, for now, let's move on to, I don't know, what's the next thing here? We've got our soft goods, white sections. So right here. And I guess the hands would also count for that. Maybe the head too. The sort of, I'll call this soft armor. Oh, soft armor. No, soft armor. Okay. And then we fill it in with this color. And then we can make this transparency locked. And now I can start painting in. And the values of this is going to be very similar to what we've already established there. The way we kind of paint these in, though, is a bit more wrinkly, I guess. Uh, Unless if it is still pretty hard armor, I'm not sure. Like, for example, right here's a perfect opportunity to paint in just some wrinkles. Just trying to find a value here that makes this transition a little bit easier. Something like that. But it feels like there's a plane change here on the chest area. I'm gonna treat this more like it's a thicker cloth, I guess. But there's still gonna be wrinkles where you would expect, you know, the character to be able to bend, like on the waist, around the leg here, on the hips, and just coming in and just kind of painting, as well as cast shadows. So maybe, yeah, maybe this does also leave behind some. Not going to show up on the orange sections yet because I haven't gotten around to it, but it'll definitely show up on these. So now I'm gonna get this arm. What's gonna help on the arm, I think, is we need a brush that is a gradation. The reason why is because this is a transition, right? This is a cylinder. And this is also a good reason why we have the transparency lock on right here. So we've got this color here, and what we could do is make that transition go one darker. So let's go here, this one darker. And that really helps turn our form on our cylinder now. That says it's slightly more rigid. It's not cloth, but it's also not, this thick outer armor that we had before. We could soften some of this now. This kind of a softer blend brush. In general, you want to start off with your hard edges and then come in with your soft edges afterwards. Help you on the transitions. Cool. Next, what do we want to do? Next, we'll tackle maybe the orange. Let's get the orange bits. So yeah, so here's, oh, I didn't get the anything up there on the block up there. So let's go back to our brush. Get some of those darker values in here. There's going to be a lot of wrinkles here. And then some highlights around here, like that. Cool. All right. Now pause this here, come back. I'm gonna get the orange. All right, so I'm gonna get to the orange section, and then I think I'm gonna stop this video. I'm gonna start a new one afterwards, and on that one I'm gonna work on the face and some of the polish. But yeah, let's do this orange section now. Go back down to our flats. Go pick our magic wand tool. Hold down shift and just select all the orange bits. The logo, all this stuff. And let's just count the darker striping up in the helmet area as part of our orange bits. Cool. Oh, I've got one last little details here and right there. Cool. Oh, also on the gun. Cool. So from here, I'm just gonna make a new layer. We'll call it accent color, maybe. And that I'm going to paint in mostly this color, except for the top here. This dark color. Cool. Now I've recreated it here. Make it a transparency lock right here with the checkerboard logo. And now I can paint right on that layer using this character here as our palette. You can see here that like the orange actually turns into kind of a yellow color when it's in the light. So let's just do that first. All the bits that are kind of facing the light, the top planes, let's just make it kind of a brighter orange. And then the bits that are, the bits here that are kind of in the shadow down here, these wrinkles, we'll make those kind of this browner color. That helps differentiate some of this. Like that's kind of facing down, this is kind of away. Looking at this right here, definitely, but there may be a little bit of this orange right there and a little bit of that highlight right there. Right. So again, I'm very much using, what's happening on his arm to use those colors to reflect what's happening on her arm right here. Even this logo, got this darker, no, not black, like brownish. There we go. That darker. So it's really helping us turn that form when we do it this way, right? This right here, to really get a sense that this orange is sunken in, maybe we have like a little bit of a cast shadow on it, and then use this nice dark here for what's in here. But then over here on the left side, that orange is now kind of this lighter color. Same thing here. But then in the darker areas, the transition definitely goes into a brownish color. So same thing here on these boots. That, and then this, the tip of the boot, and or maybe this top section of the boot, there's like a little highlight stripe, like it's a, it's like a hard, I want to say steel toed, but it's could be plastic, I don't know. Corner right there. Get that shadow underneath the belt. Let's get some of these wrinkles here. Okay. Some wrinkling here. A little bit of this kind of darkening color on that plane going away. This part's kind of facing the light here, so we can have that. But even here, we're going to start hitting some of these wrinkles along the way. This part's all dark, so cast shadow right here off of that piece of armor, right? Same thing here, a little bit of a cast shadow. There's the striping that's up here. And let's just use the ones in the shadow here as our guide. There's even darker bits, or our sort of wrinkly bits, which we established on our gray stuff there, right? And then I think I do want a little bit of a highlight, just so that even within the shadow there's like a lighter value there. This could just kind of all go to brown if we wanted it to. Just don't want to call attention to it. I'll have this part start getting dark too. Maybe shadows there. To separate the strap. We may end up putting, making these two things into lights at the end. Maybe they'll glow, not sure. But that's pretty cool. Oh yeah, this boot. So we established that maybe the front, well, that would be facing the light, so there would be a highlight around here, I think. And like a real bright bit right here on that corner. Be like a darker transition shadow underneath whatever that strapping is. Cool. Cool, cool. I'm wondering if I should indicate a little bit of a shadow here, like it sticks up a bit. Kind of good. A little three-dimensionality to it. And then this part gets a little bit of the light out of it. And shadow. This area gets a little shadow. That's pretty good on the orange. Okay. And then, yeah, we still don't have this dark. Yeah, let's do the dark bit. I'm just gonna select from the flats. Select all these sort of dark gray bits here. Oh, I guess that's the absence of selection. So let's deselect off of that. Oh yeah, now we got it. Cool. Gonna make a new color and call these I don't know, dark gray cloth. Dark grays. And this I want to fill in. Start with that color. It's filled, and now make this transparency lock so I can actually. So what are these bits, right? These are kind of bits like this armpit area right here. So maybe that'll be a good start. Yeah, I always felt that I didn't go dark enough on my base material on it, so. Oh, I missed the armpit right there. Let's get that in there too. So this is the wonderful thing here. If you miss something, you come back here, you unlock it, right? And then you can like fill it in, and now you lock it again, right? So it's like a real easy way to get that part done. I guess you got part of the glass there too, but maybe you don't want the glass to be that dark. I'll just make it a little lighter. Alright, so this is the base color for this, and then we can go a little darker, well, for first off, if it's actually casting a shadow, you kind of want to indicate the shadow casters, right? Like right there under the belt. All this armor stuff under that armor, because there's thickness to that armor, right? So, and now I kind of want to get my shadow wrinkles in place here, right there, and I guess the front of the boot and the far side from the light also gets dark. Cast shadow off of the shin armor. You know, I never did choose a color for the belt, so probably gonna have to come back for the belt later as well. Got this little light blue thing there. Yeah, maybe that could be my temporary highlight. Maybe it's not enough, but I'm just gonna put that in there for now. It's a little spot of accent bluish color, which I don't really have in my. Be good to have a little bit of color. Cool. So there I got my dark grays in here now, right? And oh, I don't know. We can, you know, come back and just check to see. Oh yeah, I never did the neck, so the neck is lacking. Let's grab the neck. Yeah, let's get that neck. Put that under the soft armor. Uncheck the transparency lock. Let's just fill it in now. Now we lock it back up, and I can actually come in and paint these little shadows sort of underneath that chin area. Get some highlights up here on that neck. Trying to think of any other points here where we can yeah. Well, what happened to our... Oh, we hid it. I was like, what happened to all the color I just added? Yeah, there we go. Cool. Gonna stop this video here. We're gonna come back and on the second YouTube video, gonna cover the face and sort of final polishes. Okay. Now you can see how fast this is once you have all the colors kind of laid in there, under different combinations.